I told my parents to grow up in front of my 8-year-old sister. Reddit says I'm the hero, but mom's giving me the silent treatment. I'm a 16-year-old guy, not the type to stir up drama. Usually, I'm the one who keeps my head down, gets my homework done, helps out around the house, and just tries to avoid conflict. But last night? Last night I did something I've never done before, and now I don't know if I crossed a line or just finally stood up for what was right. It started out like any normal evening. I was at the dining table trying to finish a history essay that was already 2 days late. My little sister Emma, who's 8, was sitting beside me with her coloring book, drawing a sparkly unicorn or something like that. Mom was in the kitchen making dinner, slamming pots around like they owed her money. The mood was already tense, and I could feel the storm brewing before it even hit. Dad got home late, like usual. He walked in and made a sarcastic comment about how the house looked like a disaster zone. That was all it took. The match hit the gasoline. Mom spun around with that look, you know the one, and fired back with something about how she's been working 2 jobs and maybe if Dad helped more, things wouldn't be such a mess. Dad replied with some crap about how her online shopping is draining the budget, and then suddenly they were both shouting over each other. Accusations flying. Voices getting louder. I swear the air itself got heavier. Emma froze beside me, her marker hovering in midair. Her eyes started to glass over, and she did this tiny little flinch when Dad slammed the fridge door. She whispered to me, "Make them stop." And that was it. I don't know what came over me. I stood up, my heart pounding like crazy, and just snapped. "Can you two stop acting like children?" I yelled. Emma's terrified. "If you have to fight, do it when she's asleep, or better yet, go get counseling." Boom. Dead silence. My voice echoed in the room. I saw my dad blink like he'd been slapped. My mom just stared at me, mouth open. Emma clung to my arm like it was the only stable thing in the world. I was shaking but standing firm. Dad mumbled, "We'll finish this later," and stormed off to the garage. Mom just turned off the stove and left the room without saying anything. I took Emma to my room, put on some cartoons to distract her, and we sat there in silence except for the noise from the TV. She eventually curled up beside me and fell asleep. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling wondering what I'd just done. An hour later, Mom came to my door. She said my tone was disrespectful and that I'd humiliated them in our own home. I told her, maybe the humiliation comes from scaring your daughter, not from me pointing it out. She got teary-eyed and walked away. I didn't follow her. Later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I went on Reddit and posted about it on r/am/a hole, half expecting to get dragged for yelling. But instead, the comments blew up. Hundreds of strangers telling me I was in the right. Saying I did what my parents should have done, protected Emma. Some even called me the parent in the room. A licensed therapist even left a comment saying I had shown emotional maturity and offered links to free family therapy resources. It honestly made me cry a little. Not that I'd ever admit that out loud. This morning? The house was weird. Mom's not speaking to me. She handed me breakfast without making eye contact. Dad acted overly cheerful, like some kind of sitcom dad on a guilt trip. Emma wouldn't leave my side, and when I left for school, she asked if I'd be home after, like she needed reassurance. That hit me hard. Now I'm just sitting here wondering, did I do the right thing? Was I out of line? I get the irony, yelling to stop yelling. But in that moment, I wasn't trying to be the adult. I had to be, because no one else was stepping up. I didn't want Emma to think yelling and slamming doors is just normal marriage behavior. I didn't want her to internalize that chaos. And I didn't want to keep pretending everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. Still, part of me wonders if I could have handled it better. Could I have taken Emma to another room quietly? Waited until they cooled off to talk? Maybe. But when you see your little sister shaking and asking you to make them stop, something switches in your brain. You don't think. You just act. Now I'm caught in this weird in-between. I feel proud of myself, but also guilty. Empowered, but also kind of lost. I stood up, but now I don't know where to go from here. Mom's clearly hurt. Dad's pretending like nothing happened. And I'm just hoping this doesn't become the moment our family unravels instead of gets better. So yeah, I'm turning to the internet again. Was I the asshole here? And if not, how do I even begin to repair this with my parents without backing down on what matters? Emma's safety and peace come first. Always. But I don't want this to be the start of World War III at home either. I just want my family to be better. Calmer. Safer. Maybe that's too much to ask. Maybe not. I honestly don't know anymore. He had 4 girlfriends, and they all found out the same night, thanks to me. I never expected that moving in with a random guy from a roommate listing would land me smack in the middle of the most insane relationship drama I've ever witnessed. But here we are. This all went down during my junior year of college. Rent in our area was brutal, and I found a guy, let's call him Jake, looking for a roommate to split a decent apartment near campus. I met him once before moving in. He seemed chill. Friendly, maybe a little cocky, but not in an unbearable way. Plus, he worked full-time and was barely home. Win-win, I thought. For the first few weeks, everything was smooth. We mostly kept to ourselves. Occasionally we'd hang out, watch a game, order pizza. He had a girlfriend, or so I assumed, this girl Emily, who started coming over on weekends. They acted like a couple. She'd stay the night, make breakfast sometimes. I figured they were serious. Then, about a month in, I walked into the living room one Thursday evening and found him cuddling with another girl. Blonde, different vibe than Emily, clearly close with him. I didn't say anything. Maybe he and Emily broke up. I don't like to meddle. But 2 days later, Emily was back. That's when I got my first red flag. Over the next couple of weeks, I kept noticing different girls coming in and out of our apartment. Sometimes they'd overlap, one would leave in the morning and another would show up that evening. One time I bumped into a girl in the kitchen while Jake was still asleep. She introduced herself as Sarah, and I awkwardly played along like I didn't already know she wasn't Emily. After Sarah came Tina, then Lauren, and I think there was a Chloe once, too. I'd honestly lost track. Now, I'm no prude, and I don't care what people do with their lives as long as everyone involved knows what's going on. But these girls? They clearly had no clue about each other. Each one talked to me like she was Jake's main girlfriend. It was uncomfortable, and it got to the point where I was feeling guilty by association. One night after Tina left, I asked him straight up, "Jake, how many girls are you seeing right now?" He just shrugged and smirked. "A few. They don't need to know about each other." I was stunned. No remorse. No hesitation. Just straight up sociopathy with a charming grin. So I tried to keep my distance. I didn't want to be part of whatever karma storm was brewing. But then, I accidentally became the spark that lit the fuse. It happened on a random Wednesday night. I'd just gotten off work and stopped by a bar near our place to grab takeout. And who do I run into? Emily. She lights up when she sees me. "Oh hey. You live with Jake, right? He said he was staying in tonight." I was thinking of surprising him with drinks. "You wanna come?" I hesitated. Then I said the dumbest thing possible. "I thought he was out with Lauren tonight?" The second I said it, I knew I messed up. Her smile froze. "Lauren? Who's Lauren?" Cue internal panic. I scrambled. I don't know. I might have misheard something. Sorry, long day." She just stared at me. "No, you said her name. You said Lauren." I quickly made up an excuse and left, but the damage was done. Emily went full FBI. Over the next 2 days, she went through Jake's tagged photos, his Instagram likes, his Venmo transactions, everything. She found Lauren. Then Sarah. Then Tina. And yes, she found Chloe, too. She reached out to all of them. Somehow convinced them all to join a group chat. I only found out later that they compared notes, dates, screenshots, and messages. Turns out he was telling all of them that he was serious about them. Using the same compliments, the same excuses, even the same pet names. And then came the reckoning. That Saturday night, all 5 girls, Emily, Sarah, Tina, Lauren, and Chloe, showed up at our apartment. Together. They coordinated it to confront him in person. I was in my room when I heard a knock at the door, followed by a chorus of female voices. I cracked my door open just enough to see Jake open the front door in gym shorts and a cocky smile, which immediately vanished when he saw who was standing there. Chaos. They stormed in. Emily was holding printed screenshots of his texts. Sarah was yelling. Chloe, quiet, icy cold, dropped a box of his stuff on the floor. Someone, I think Tina, actually slapped him. Like a full-on soap opera moment. Jake tried to defend himself at first. Said things like "you're overreacting," or "it wasn't that serious," but every word out of his mouth just made it worse. Lauren straight up said, "You told me you loved me last weekend. I met your mom." The whole confrontation lasted about 20 minutes. Then, one by one, they left. But not before each of them threw a drink, a shoe, or some form of insult his way. I've never seen someone get emotionally nuked like that in real time. Jake didn't speak to me afterward. Not a word. The next morning, I woke up and half the furniture was gone. He'd packed his stuff overnight and disappeared. Never even paid his last month's rent. To this day, I don't know where he went. I heard from a friend he moved across the state and tried to start over. All I know is, 5 very betrayed women teamed up and delivered the most satisfying act of karmic justice I've ever witnessed. And all because I slipped up at a bar. Moral of the story, don't cheat. Especially not in the same zip code. Especially not with 5 girls who all know how to use Instagram. And definitely don't do it while living with someone whose memory for names is just good enough to blow it all up. You're welcome, Jake. We adopted a Chinese baby. 12 years later, a DNA test uncovered a life-altering truth. So this actually spans over a decade, but the today if *** get up moment happened just a few months ago, and I'm still trying to process the whole thing. I've been meaning to post this somewhere, maybe as a cautionary tale, maybe just to get it off my chest. Strap in, because this one's got layers. My wife and I always wanted to adopt. After struggling with infertility for years, we decided to pursue international adoption. We did the research, spoke to a few agencies, and eventually went through a fairly reputable organization that had connections in East Asia. The process was long and emotionally exhausting: home studies, paperwork, interviews, background checks, but eventually, we got matched with a beautiful baby boy. He was just under a year old, reportedly born in a province in southern China and placed in an orphanage soon after birth. The adoption paperwork clearly listed him as Chinese. The orphanage name was Chinese. The official documents were in Chinese. The agency told us he was ethnically Han Chinese. Everything pointed to Chinese, so that was never something we even thought to question. We brought him home, named him Dylan, and raised him with as much love and intention as we possibly could. Because we're white Americans, we always knew we'd need to make an effort to help him stay connected to his cultural heritage. We wanted him to be proud of where he came from, to know his roots and embrace them. So we really leaned into the Chinese culture thing. We celebrated Lunar New Year every year. We gave him red envelopes, taught him to use chopsticks before he could spell his own name, filled his bookshelf with Chinese folk stories, and decorated his room with paper lanterns and dragons. We even made dumplings from scratch as a family tradition. But the real commitment? We enrolled him in weekend Chinese language school starting at age 5. Let me be clear, this was not just a learn a few words kind of program. This was full-on Mandarin immersion. Every Saturday morning for years, Dylan went to class with other Chinese American kids, learning pinyin, tones, calligraphy, traditional songs, and cultural etiquette. There were field trips to Chinese festivals, tea ceremonies, and even lion dancing. He was never a huge fan of the classes, mostly because what kid wants more school on the weekends, but he was a good sport about it. We told him, You'll thank us later when you're fluent. Spoiler, he never got fluent, but he did develop a pretty solid foundation in Mandarin, for reasons that, in retrospect, are hilariously tragic. Fast forward to earlier this year. Dylan is now 12. He's smart, curious, and has gotten really into family history and identity lately. For a school project, his class was doing family trees, and part of the assignment was to take a consumer DNA test, you know the ones. We thought it would be a fun educational experience and maybe give him some more detail about his background. We ordered the kit, he spit in the tube, we sent it off. 6 weeks later, the results come back. And they absolutely destroy our entire narrative. Ethnicity estimate: Korean, 98%. East Asian, unspecified 2%. Chinese, 0%. At first I thought it was a glitch. I checked the email twice, made sure it wasn't someone else's results. My wife and I sat there blinking at the screen. Dylan, meanwhile, stared at the page in silence for a minute and then casually said, "So, I'm not Chinese?" Cue the world's most awkward silence. We spent the next week going down a rabbit hole. We pulled out his old adoption documents, scrutinizing every page. We called the agency, now under a different name and staff, and after days of emails, we finally spoke to someone who helped us piece it together. Here's the gist. Dylan was actually born in Busan, South Korea, and ended up in a Chinese orphanage due to some interagency agreement between neighboring adoption centers. Somewhere along the way, his ethnicity was either lost in translation or just misfiled altogether. By the time he was matched with us, he was listed and passed off as Chinese. That information never got corrected, and we never thought to verify. So how did Dylan react? Honestly, better than we deserved. He laughed. Not immediately, at first he was clearly confused and a little hurt. But once we talked it through and showed him how it happened, he started joking about how we gaslit him into being Chinese. He now refers to the Mandarin he knows as the wrong Asian language, and he's been hitting us with stuff like, "You guys gave me rice dumplings when I should have had kimchi. You sent me to Chinese school when I could have just watched K-dramas and vibed." All that suffering through tones for nothing. He's been a great sport. In fact, he's now actively learning Korean on Duolingo and watches Korean dramas with subtitles. He even asked to try making bulgogi last weekend. We're doing our best to support him properly this time and help him explore his actual cultural background. We apologized to him. A lot. He told us we didn't need to, that he knows we meant well, and that at least now he gets to learn a whole new set of traditions. But man, the guilt still hits hard.
Bride wars. I chose a pink wedding dress, and my family imploded. Let me tell you how my dream wedding turned into a battleground over one dress. Spoiler alert, it wasn't white. And apparently, that was enough to start a family war. I, 28F, got engaged last year to the most incredible person I've ever known. We're planning a fall wedding, under the trees, golden leaves, soft fairy lights, a live acoustic band. It's going to be romantic, intimate, a little bit whimsical. The moment I envisioned since I was old enough to know what a wedding was. But I never dreamed of wearing white. See, white never felt like me. I'm not anti-tradition just for the sake of rebellion, but the idea of wearing a white dress just to satisfy some outdated expectation felt like trying to be someone I'm not. I wanted a soft blush pink gown, elegant, vintage-inspired, with layers of tulle and delicate beading. Not Barbie pink, not loud. Just romantic, ethereal, and mine. The first person I told was my mom. Big mistake. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You can't be serious," she said. "You're really going to embarrass yourself like that?" She went off about how people would think I was being immature, how weddings were supposed to be classy and traditional. "What will your grandmother think? What will your aunt think?" she asked. I tried to stay calm. "I'm not marrying Grandma or Aunt Linda. I'm marrying Eli. And Eli thinks the dress is beautiful." My mom's response? She said if I went through with this nonsense, she wouldn't be contributing a cent to the wedding. That stung. She had always promised to help me with the dress. She'd helped my sister, who wore a big poofy white ball gown and got the full princess treatment, so I figured she'd do the same for me. Apparently not if my dress was the color of shame. Yes, she said that. The color of shame. The irony? I'm not even the first in our family to wear a colored dress. My great-grandmother wore blue. My aunt wore ivory. But pink was somehow the ultimate betrayal. Things got even worse when she rallied my dad to her side. "You know how it'll look," he said. "People will whisper. They'll think you're pregnant." That's when I lost it. I couldn't believe we were in 2025 and this was the conversation we were having. I cried for hours that night. I started second-guessing everything. Was I being selfish? Was I ruining this day for everyone else? But then, my brother, 31M, my quiet, introverted, keep-to-himself older brother, called me and said, "Screw them. I'll pay for the dress." Just like that. No lecture. No guilt. Just support. He told me he'd always admired how I did things my way, and that if this dress felt right to me, that was all that mattered. I was floored. He's never been the sentimental type, but that moment meant the world to me. I ended up sharing my story, anonymously, on Reddit, mostly just to vent. But I didn't expect the response I got. Thousands of people chimed in, some with stories of their own non-traditional weddings, others just sending love and support. A few trolls, of course, but overwhelmingly, Reddit had my back. It felt like a hug from the universe. Some people shared photos of their pale lavender, sage green, or champagne gold gowns. One woman even said she wore black and had zero regrets. "It's your wedding. Not a costume party to please other people," she wrote. That really hit me. My mom eventually found the post. I'm not sure who sent it to her, but she was furious. Called me ungrateful. Said I was humiliating her in public. But by that point, I'd found my strength again. I told her this wasn't about her. I wasn't asking her to wear the dress, or even like it. Just to show up and be my mom. She hasn't spoken to me since. It's been 2 months. I sent her an invitation. She didn't RSVP. I don't know if she'll come. My dad is staying quiet, which usually means he's taking her side. But I'm wearing my blush pink gown. I picked it up last week. When I put it on, I cried, not because I was sad, but because I felt more like myself than I ever have in any white dress I tried on. My brother's walking me down the aisle. Eli cried when they saw me in the dress. "You look like poetry," they said. I don't know how the rest of my family will react. I don't know if my mom will change her mind. But what I do know is this: I'm not ashamed. Not of my dress, not of my choice, and definitely not of standing up for what feels right to me. So yeah, maybe tradition matters. But being true to yourself? That matters more.
The Karen who saved our complex, how the loudest complainer became the biggest hero. So, I live in what I describe as your average mid-sized apartment complex somewhere in the suburban sprawl. Rent's decent, maintenance is hit or miss, and the biggest excitement used to be when someone left their dog poop in the hallway and we all speculated who it was. Enter, neighborhood Karen. Yes, she calls herself that. No shame. No remorse. But plot twist, she might also be the reason our building didn't go up in flames last weekend and why a toddler is still alive. Buckle up. This is a long one. She moved in about a year ago. Mid-50s, permed hair, workout leggings even though I'd never seen her go near the gym. Immediately, notes started appearing in the lobby and laundry room. Printed. In all caps. To whoever left dryer lint behind, do better. This is a residential complex, not a nightclub. Noise and filth. Just be quiet. Please. We rolled our eyes. Classic Karen, people muttered. She was always peeking through blinds, reporting dogs off leash to the office, banging on the ceiling with a broom, yes, really, and glaring at anyone who dared to talk in the courtyard after 8 p.m. One neighbor swears she caught Karen measuring the grass with a ruler to report uneven mowing. So yeah, most of us avoided her like the plague. A few weeks ago, it was one of those early summer days when everyone flocks to the pool. The sun was blazing, kids screaming, adults grilling, music pumping. You could feel Karen's rage building from across the lawn. And then, the screaming changed. A high-pitched shriek, one of those blood-chilling kinds that bypasses your ears and goes straight to your gut. A toddler had somehow slipped through the gate and fallen into the deep end. No floaties. No one noticed except Karen. I swear to you, this woman sprinted across the concrete like an Olympian, phone flying from her hand, jumped into the pool fully clothed, and pulled the kid up. Kid was coughing, but breathing. Parents came running. EMTs were called. It was chaos. But Karen? She just sat there, soaked, shaking, muttering something about how the gate latch was loose and she had told the office 2 weeks ago. Later that night, someone left her a thank you card. It was taped to her door the next day, with an addendum scrawled underneath. But please still keep the noise down. She didn't change. Still left notes. Still glared. But the narrative started to shift. People started saying things like, okay, but she saved that baby. Flash forward to last Saturday. Late evening. I'm watching Netflix when the fire alarm goes off. At first, I figured it was just someone burning popcorn again. Then I heard yelling from outside. I run out to the balcony, and sure enough, one of the apartments on the second floor was actually on fire. Smoke pouring from a broken window. The sprinkler system hadn't kicked in. People were confused, panicked, some just filming it on their phones, of course faced with rolling eyes. And who's already banging on doors? Karen. She had smelled smoke through her AC vent, apparently. Didn't wait to call management. She ran outside and started going door to door, pulling people out of their units. At least 2 neighbors said they didn't even know there was a fire until she banged on their doors yelling, "Get out." By the time the fire department arrived, everyone was safe. One unit was destroyed, but no one was hurt. Including an elderly man in the unit next door who couldn't hear the alarm because of his hearing aids. Karen had physically guided him out. I saw her after, sitting on the curb, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket someone gave her. She looked exhausted. I tried to thank her. She waved me off and just said, "Don't let the fire alarm sit blinking for weeks. Maintenance never checks." The next day, there was a thread in our community Facebook group titled, "Apology to Karen, I misjudged you." Dozens of comments. People fessing up to complaining about her, mocking her, avoiding her. Now they were thanking her. One person wrote, "If I'm ever trapped in a burning building, I hope it's Karen banging on my door." Another posted, "I thought you were just nosy and annoying. Turns out you're also brave and give a damn." So yeah, she still posts notes. Still hates noise. But now people smile when they pass her. Someone even brought her a pie. I heard a rumor she might be invited to join the tenant advisory board. She declined, apparently said she doesn't trust groups to get things done. I stopped working overtime after being passed over for a promotion, then got a raise anyway. Flushed face. Here's how doing less got me more. Hey r/career advice. I've been reading stories on this sub for a while, but this time I've got my own to share, and honestly, I still can't believe how it all turned out. Long story short, I went from being the employee who always worked late, answered emails at night, and sacrificed weekends for the job, to someone who sticks strictly to a 9-to-5 schedule. No more unpaid overtime. No more stressing over work at night. No more trying to be the hero. The twist? Instead of getting in trouble, or being seen as lazy, or quiet quitting, I ended up getting a 15% raise just a few months later. No promotion. No begging. No extra hours. Just better boundaries. Let me walk you through how it all happened. I've been working at my current company, a mid-sized tech firm, for almost 4 years now. I started as a junior project manager and eventually worked my way into a mid-level PM role. I was proud of that progress, and I wanted more. So I fell into what I now call the hustle trap. I worked late almost every night, stayed available on weekends, answered Slack messages well into the evening, and constantly said yes to extra work. I honestly believed that if I just worked hard enough, someone would notice and reward me with a promotion. That was the dream: title bump, pay raise, more recognition. It never happened. Earlier this year, I led a huge project. It was a product launch with a crazy timeline. I gave it my all, work nights, checked in during weekends, took late night client calls across time zones, and helped clean up other departments' mistakes just to get it over the finish line. When the project succeeded, I thought, this is it. There's no way they don't promote me now. Review time came around. You've been doing great work. We really appreciate your dedication. But unfortunately, there won't be any promotions this cycle due to reorg planning. Maybe next quarter. I was crushed. I smiled and nodded on the call, but inside, I was fuming. They used my work, my time, my stress, and just moved the goalpost. That night, I looked at my Slack notifications at 10:45 p.m., closed my laptop, and thought, why am I doing this to myself? That's when I decided to make a quiet change. No dramatic announcement. No passive-aggressive comments. Just action. I started following a strict 9-to-5 schedule. Logged in at 9 a.m. sharp. Took real lunch breaks away from my desk. Logged out at 5 p.m. every day. Didn't check work email or Slack after hours. Didn't volunteer for anything outside my official tasks. And the most important part, I stopped feeling guilty about it. The first week felt weird. I kept checking the time and feeling like I was slacking off by not working late. I ignored a few late Slack messages and felt a spike of anxiety each time. What if someone noticed? What if I looked lazy? But guess what? The world didn't end. I replied to messages the next morning. I still hit deadlines. No one called me out. In fact, no one said a word. And something else happened too. I started thinking more clearly. I had more energy during the day. I wasn't dragging myself to my desk in the morning. I felt like a human again. Because I knew I was only working 8 hours a day, I started managing my time more aggressively. I declined meetings without agendas. I cut my weekly report writing time in half by building a better template. I kept my calendar organized and protected deep focus blocks. And it worked. I wasn't just working less, I was working better. Projects got done faster. My team communicated more clearly. I didn't feel like I was constantly catching up. After a few weeks of this new routine, I started hearing little things from coworkers. Hey, are you interviewing somewhere else? You seem super chill lately, everything okay? Are you stepping back from your role? Nope. I just wasn't burned out anymore. And apparently, people noticed. But here's the funny thing, instead of treating me like I was disengaged, people seemed to start respecting my time more. When I was in meetings, people got to the point faster. When I said I was unavailable after hours, they stopped pushing back. 3 months later, I had my quarterly check-in with my manager. I assumed it would be the usual feedback session, talk about goals, maybe discuss the next project. Instead, he said, "We've seen a noticeable improvement in how your projects are moving. Client feedback has been excellent. You've really helped the team operate more smoothly lately. We'd like to give you a 15% raise starting next month." I sat there for a moment trying not to laugh. Not in a mean way, just out of total shock. I hadn't done any late nights. I hadn't done any above and beyond extras. I had simply done my actual job, within the hours I was paid for, and done it well. Why I think this worked? Here's my theory. People respect boundaries. When you draw the line, others follow. Results matter more than hours. I used to equate time with value. Now I focus on outcomes. You seem more confident. When you stop chasing approval, it shifts how people see you. You're replaceable, but being calm and effective is rare. Companies notice. Final thoughts. If you're feeling burned out or unappreciated, here's my advice. Start small. Try turning off notifications after hours for a week. Focus on doing your core tasks really well. No extras unless you're paid. Track your results. Make your value obvious. Let go of the guilt. You're allowed to have a life. The biggest lesson I learned? Your time has value. But no one will treat it that way until you do first. A Reddit horror story so twisted Hollywood had to make it a movie, and wait till you see who's starring. Sometimes the scariest stories don't come from haunted houses or cursed videotapes, they come from Reddit. One of the darkest, most psychologically disturbing stories ever posted to the r/nosleep subreddit is officially making the jump from internet creepypasta to major motion picture. And this isn't some low-budget, straight-to-streaming thriller either. It's a full-blown Hollywood adaptation with an all-star creative team that includes Sydney Sweeney in the lead role and a screenplay by Oscar-winning legend Eric Roth. The internet is freaking out, and for good reason. The story in question? The eerily titled, "I Pretended to Be a Missing Girl So I Could Rob Her Family." Yes. That's the actual plot. And it's exactly as twisted as it sounds. It all began as a post on r/nosleep, Reddit's legendary horror fiction community, where every story is told as if it's real. The rules are simple: no breaking character, no disbelief, just immerse yourself in the terror. The post in question follows a cunning and mysterious young woman who poses as a long-lost daughter of a wealthy family, a girl who vanished without a trace years ago. She changes her appearance, studies the case, and infiltrates the grieving family under the guise of being their missing child. But what begins as a cold, calculated con quickly descends into psychological horror. The narrator starts experiencing strange, unexplainable phenomena. The family's grief is palpable, but so is their paranoia. The household secrets, and the deeper she gets into her role, the less she knows about where the lies end and where the truth begins. Readers were hooked. The post went viral, amassing tens of thousands of upvotes, hundreds of chilling comments, and widespread speculation about what was real, what was imagined, and whether the narrator was victim, villain, or something in between. The moment the story began to circulate, film studios started circling like vultures. But it wasn't until 2024 that a deal was struck and the names attached were jaw-dropping. The film, tentatively titled The Girl Who Wasn't There, is already being hailed as one of the most promising psychological horror films in development. Sydney Sweeney, known for emotionally raw performances in Euphoria, The White Lotus, and Reality, is set to star as the enigmatic con artist at the heart of the story. Insiders say the role will push her further than ever into emotional and psychological darkness. Sydney is going to shock people, one anonymous producer said. This isn't just her best role, it's her most dangerous. The screenplay is being written by Eric Roth, whose filmography includes Forrest Gump, A Star is Born, Dune, and Munich. But don't be fooled by his pedigree. Roth is diving deep into horror for the first time, and he's bringing all of his storytelling weight with him. According to industry whispers, the script doesn't just adapt the Reddit post, it expands it. New layers of suspense, psychological unraveling, and even supernatural undertones have been added to elevate the story from internet terror to Oscar-worthy horror. What makes this story so disturbing isn't just its plot, it's the terrifying psychology behind it. Impersonating a missing child is horrific enough, but the original story doesn't stop there. It drags readers through a web of guilt, grief, manipulation, and the human hunger to be believed. The girl isn't a monster, at least, not at first. But as her lies begin to consume her, the horror grows. Did she just assume a life? Or did she awaken something that was better left buried? There's a creeping sense of dread throughout, like the walls are closing in, not just on the character, but on you, the reader. That's what makes this tale so effective. It's not about gore or jump scares. It's about doubt. About the danger of pretending to be someone you're not, and getting lost in the performance. The film, according to Roth, will lean hard into this theme. The audience won't know who to trust. They won't even know what's real. And neither will the main character. This isn't the first Reddit story to be adapted for the screen. The Antisocial Network and My Wife and I Bought a Ranch both landed deals, but it may be the most disturbing and the most prestigious. It marks a shift in how stories are told and where they come from. Forget novels or screenplays. In the age of digital storytelling, the next big horror hit might be lurking in a subreddit, just waiting for the right cast and crew to bring it to life. So when the lights go down and the film begins, ask yourself, how well do you really know who's sitting across from you? Because the scariest monsters are the ones who pretend to be someone else. And she's about to knock on your door.